What happens when the most controversial figure in American politics sits down with the most outspoken panel on daytime television? You won't believe what unfolds when a routine interview transforms into an explosive confrontation that leaves everyone speechless. This isn't just another heated exchange. This is the moment that had viewers calling it the most shocking guest appearance in The View's history. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds when civility completely breaks down on live television. The atmosphere in the View studio was electric even before the cameras started rolling. Behind the scenes, production assistants whispered nervously as they made final preparations for what everyone knew would be television gold. The panel, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and Sunny Hostin, had spent the morning in heated discussions about how to approach their guest. This wasn't just any appearance. This was Donald Trump returning to The View for the first time since his presidency, and tensions were running higher than anyone could have anticipated. As the show's opening music faded and Whoopi welcomed viewers, there was an unmistakable edge in her voice. "We have a very special guest today," she announced, her words carefully measured. "Someone who certainly needs no introduction, and I'm sure will have plenty to say." The camera panned across the panel, capturing subtle glances and tight smiles that hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. When Trump walked onto the set, the applause was polite but noticeably restrained. He took his seat with his characteristic confidence, adjusting his tie and surveying the panel with what could only be described as a calculating look. "Ladies," he said with a nod, "always a pleasure to be here with such distinguished hosts." The first few minutes proceeded normally enough. Whoopi opened with what seemed like standard questions about his current activities and future plans. Trump responded with his typical bravado, discussing his various business ventures and dropping hints about political aspirations. But even during these seemingly innocuous exchanges, there was an undercurrent of tension that veteran View watchers could sense immediately. Joy Behar was the first to probe deeper, her voice carrying that familiar sharpness that signaled trouble ahead. "Let's talk about accountability," she said, leaning forward slightly. "You've made some pretty strong claims about various institutions lately. Don't you think public figures have a responsibility to be more careful with their words?" Trump's demeanor shifted almost imperceptibly. His smile remained, but his eyes hardened. "I've always been very careful with my words, Joy. Very careful. I think the real question is why certain people in the media refuse to report the truth. They twist everything. They take things out of context. It's really quite dishonest." The temperature in the room seemed to rise a few degrees. Sunny Hostin jumped in, her legal background evident in her precise questioning. "But when you make statements that can be easily fact-checked and proven false, how do you expect people to trust anything you say? Aren't you concerned about the impact of spreading misinformation?" Trump's facade of politeness began to crack. "Misinformation? That's rich coming from this show. You ladies have been spreading misinformation about me for years. Years. And now you want to lecture me about truth." His voice was getting louder, more animated. "I've been subjected to more false reporting than probably any person in history. And you're sitting here asking me about misinformation?" Whoopi tried to regain control, but Trump was just getting started. "I came here thinking we could have a civilized conversation, but I see we're going right back to the same old attacks, the same old lies. It's really quite sad, actually. Quite sad." Sarah Haynes attempted to redirect the conversation, her voice calm but firm. "We're not attacking you. We're asking legitimate questions that our viewers want answered. If you can't handle basic accountability questions, maybe that says something about the positions you've taken." The word handle seemed to trigger something in Trump. He shifted in his chair, his body language becoming more aggressive. "Handle? I can handle anything you throw at me, Sarah. Anything. I've been handling attacks from people much smarter and much more powerful than anyone at this table. For decades. The question is whether you can handle the truth when someone actually tells it to you." Alyssa Farah Griffin, with her background in the Trump administration, chose her words carefully. "I worked for you. I saw how decisions were made. Don't you think the American people deserve leaders who can admit when they're wrong, who can show some humility?" Trump's eyes flashed with what looked like genuine anger. "Humility? You worked for me, Alyssa, and you were happy to do it. Very happy. And now you sit here, and lecture me about humility? That's really something. Really something. He turned to address the camera directly. This is exactly what I'm talking about, folks. This is the swamp. People who benefited from working with me, who were proud to serve, and now they turn around and stab you in the back for their television careers. The panel exchanged glances, and viewers could practically feel the collective intake of breath. This was spiraling beyond a typical heated exchange into something much more personal and explosive. Joy Behar, never one to back down from a fight, leaned in further. Nobody's stabbing anyone in the back. We're doing our jobs, asking the questions that need to be asked. If you can't handle the heat, don't you dare. Trump interrupted, pointing a finger across the table. Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. I've handled more heat than you could ever imagine. I've been through investigations, impeachments, lawsuits, and I'm still here, still fighting. The question is why you're so threatened by someone who actually tells the truth. Whoopi's attempts to maintain order were becoming increasingly desperate. Let's all take a breath here and try to have a productive conversation. But Trump was beyond diplomatic niceties now. Productive? How can we have a productive conversation when I'm being ambushed? When I'm being attacked from all sides by people who have been lying about me for years? This isn't journalism, this is activism. And frankly, it's disgraceful. The studio audience was dead silent, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Even the usually vocal crowd seemed stunned by the rapid deterioration of what should have been a standard celebrity interview. Sunny Hostin, maintaining her composure despite the escalating tension, tried once more. No one is ambushing you. These are questions any serious political figure should be prepared to answer. The fact that you're getting so defensive suggests defensive. Trump's voice was rising to levels that had production assistants looking nervously at each other. I'm not defensive. I'm fighting back against lies and distortions. There's a difference. A big difference. And maybe if you spent less time attacking me and more time asking real questions about real issues, this country would be in better shape. The confrontation had reached a critical mass, and everyone in the room could sense that something was about to give. The careful balance between heated television and outright chaos was teetering on the edge, and one wrong word from anyone would send the entire situation spinning completely out of control. That wrong word came from Joy Behar, who had clearly reached her breaking point. You know what? This is exactly why people can't stand politicians anymore. You can't give a straight answer to save your life. Everything is everyone else's fault. Everything is fake news. Everything is a conspiracy against you. When do you take responsibility for anything? Trump's face flushed red, and for a moment, the studio fell into complete silence. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Responsibility? You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility of the media to tell the truth instead of pushing their political agenda. Let's talk about the responsibility of talk show hosts to actually do their homework instead of parroting Democratic talking points. Democratic talking points. Whoopi interjected, her voice rising. These aren't talking points, these are facts. And if you can't handle facts, then maybe you shouldn't be in public life. The gloves were completely off now. Trump leaned forward, his voice becoming more aggressive with each word. Facts. What facts? The fact that you've been wrong about me from day one. The fact that every prediction you've made has been completely false. The fact that despite all your attacks, all your lies, all your attempts to destroy me, I'm still here and stronger than ever. Sarah Haynes tried desperately to regain some semblance of control. This isn't about destroying anyone. This is about accountability. When you make claims that affect millions of people, when you spread conspiracy theories that undermine democratic institutions. There she goes again. Trump exploded, throwing his hands up in exasperation. Conspiracy theories. Everything that doesn't fit your narrative is a conspiracy theory. What about the conspiracy theories you've been pushing about me for years? What about the Russia hoax? What about all the lies that were told about me that have been completely debunked? Sunny Hostin, her legal training evident in her measured but firm response, wasn't backing down. Those weren't lies. Those were legitimate investigations into serious allegations. The fact that you can't distinguish between accountability and persecution is exactly the problem. Persecution? Trump's voice cracked with indignation. You want to talk about persecution? I've been persecuted like no political figure in American history. Persecuted by the media, persecuted by the deep state, persecuted by people like you who can't accept that the American people saw through your lies and elected me anyway. The audience was no longer silent. Murmurs and gasps rippled through the crowd as they watched what was supposed to be a talk show interview transform into something resembling a courtroom drama. Security personnel could be seen moving slightly closer to the stage, their body language tense and alert. Alyssa Farah Griffin, clearly struggling with the personal nature of the attacks, tried once more to find middle ground. Look, we can disagree on policy, we can disagree on approach, but can't we at least agree that our democracy depends on basic respect for truth and institutions? Trump turned on her with venom in his voice. Don't lecture me about democracy, Alyssa. Don't you dare. I know more about democracy than anyone at this table. I've fought for democracy while people like you have tried to undermine it. And as for truth, the truth is that you're all part of the same corrupt system that puts party politics above the American people. Corrupt system? Joy Behar's voice was shaking with anger now. We're the corrupt ones? We're not the ones who have been indicted multiple times. We're not the ones who refuse to accept election results. We're not the ones who stop right there. Trump's voice boomed across the studio with such force that even the camera operators jumped. Don't you dare bring up those sham indictments. Those political witch hunts that were designed to interfere with an election. You want to talk about threats to democracy? Look in the mirror. The confrontation had now reached a level that none of the producers had anticipated. Behind the cameras, staff members were frantically gesturing to each other, clearly debating whether to cut to commercial. But the train wreck was too compelling, too explosive to stop. Whoopi made one last attempt to restore some semblance of civility. We need to calm down here. This is getting out of hand, and our viewers deserve better than this. But Trump was beyond reason now, his face red with fury. Calm down. You ambush me. You attack me with lies and distortions, and then you tell me to calm down? This is exactly what's wrong with the mainstream media. You create the problem and then blame everyone else for the chaos. Nobody ambushed you. Sunny Hostin shot back, her composure finally cracking. You came here voluntarily. You knew exactly what kind of show this is. If you can't handle legitimate questions about your record, then maybe you should stick to friendlier venues. Legitimate questions? Trump's laugh was bitter and harsh. There's nothing legitimate about this. This is a kangaroo court, a show trial designed to make me look bad. Well, congratulations, ladies. You've shown your true colors to the American people. You've shown them exactly what the mainstream media really is. The tension in the room was now so thick, it was almost suffocating. Every person in the studio seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for the next explosion. The panel members were clearly struggling to maintain their composure, while Trump appeared to be feeding off the chaos, growing more animated and aggressive. With each exchange, Joy Behar, never one to back down from a fight, fired back with both barrels. Show trial? The only person putting on a show here is you. This victim complex, this constant blame shifting, this inability to take responsibility for anything, it's pathetic. It's beneath the dignity of any public office. That word, pathetic, seemed to hit Trump like a physical blow. His eyes narrowed to slits, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. Pathetic? You want to see pathetic? Look at your ratings. Look at your credibility. Look at how the American people view you in this network. That's pathetic. The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The audience gasped audibly, and several panel members looked genuinely shocked at the personal nature of the attack. But Trump wasn't finished. He was just getting started, and everyone in the room could sense that the situation was about to explode into something unprecedented. You know what your real problem is? Trump continued, his voice rising to a near shout. You can't stand the fact that despite all your attacks, all your lies, all your attempts to destroy me, the American people still support me. They see right through your fake journalism and your partisan agenda. And it drives you absolutely crazy. Whoopi had reached her absolute limit. Rising slightly from her chair, she pointed directly at Trump with a trembling finger. That's enough. This is our show, our house, and you will not sit here and disrespect us like this. You came here as our guest, and you've turned this into a circus. A circus? Trump laughed bitterly, his voice dripping with contempt. This whole show is a circus. You've been attacking me from the moment I sat down. You invited me here under false pretenses, and now you're upset because I'm fighting back? Well, I've got news for you. I don't back down from bullies, and I never will. The studio audience was now completely silent, frozen in shock at witnessing what was clearly the most explosive confrontation in the show's history. Production assistants were frantically whispering into their headsets, clearly receiving instructions from the control room about how to handle the unprecedented situation. Joy Behar, her face flushed with anger, stood up from her chair. Bullies? We're the bullies? You're the one who came in here throwing insults and personal attacks. You're the one who can't handle a simple question without turning it into a conspiracy theory. Simple questions? Trump's voice cracked with indignation as he also rose from his seat. You call this ambush simple questions? You've been lying about me for years, spreading false information, destroying my reputation, and now you want to play the victim? It's unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. Sunny Hostin, maintaining her composure despite the chaos erupting around her, tried one final time to restore order. Sir, with all due respect, if you can't handle basic accountability questions from journalists, how can you expect to handle the pressures of public office? That question seemed to be the final straw. Trump whirled around to face her, his eyes blazing with fury. Accountability? Journalists? You're not journalists. You're activists. You're propagandists. You wouldn't know real journalism if it bit you in the face. The personal attack on their professional integrity was too much for Sarah Haynes, who had been trying to remain diplomatic throughout the confrontation. That's completely uncalled for. We are professional journalists, and we've been more than fair to you. The fact that you can't see that shows exactly why you're unfit for any position of trust. Unfit. Trump's voice reached a crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundations of the studio. Unfit. I've accomplished more in my lifetime than everyone at this table combined. I've built a business empire. I've been president of the United States, and I've fought for the American people while you've sat here spreading lies and division. Alyssa Farah Griffin, tears of frustration visible in her eyes, made one last desperate attempt at reason. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This anger, this inability to have a civil conversation, this constant need to attack anyone who disagrees with you. This is why people are concerned. Trump turned on her with the ferocity of a cornered animal. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me, Alyssa. Don't you dare. You worked for me. You benefited from my administration, and now you sit here pretending to be some moral authority? It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The situation had now devolved into complete chaos. Multiple panel members were on their feet. Voices were raised to shouting levels, and the audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or simply watch in horrified fascination. Whoopi, realizing that the situation had spiraled completely beyond control, made a desperate attempt to end the interview. I think we need to take a commercial break right now. This has gone too far, and we need to know. Trump interrupted, his voice booming across the studio. No commercial breaks. No running away. You wanted this confrontation, you got it. You wanted to ambush me on live television. Well, here I am. This is what real leadership looks like, standing up to bullies and fighting back. Joy Behar, beyond caring about professional decorum, shot back with venom. Real leadership? This is what you call leadership? This temper tantrum, this inability to handle criticism, this constant playing the victim? If this is leadership, then God help us all. The insult seemed to physically stagger Trump. For a moment, he stood there speechless, his face cycling through various shades of red and purple. When he finally found his voice, it was barely controlled rage. God help you is right. God help all of you when the American people see what you really are. When they see how you treat people who don't bow down to your liberal agenda. Liberal agenda? Sunny Hostin's professional mask finally slipped completely. The only agenda here is truth and accountability. Something you clearly can't handle. Trump began gathering himself, straightening his jacket with sharp, angry movements. Truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it was sitting right in front of you. Which it is, by the way. I am the truth that you can't handle. The megalomaniacal statement hung in the air like a final condemnation. Even some of his supporters in the audience seemed taken aback by the sheer audacity of the claim. Whoopi made one final attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Sir, please, let's just. Try to end this on a civil note. We're all Americans here. We all want what's best for the country. Civil? Trump's laugh was harsh and bitter. You want civil? Then maybe you should have tried being civil from the beginning instead of launching into attack mode the moment I sat down. But no, you had to go for the ambush. You had to try to. Make me look bad for your liberal audience. He turned toward the camera, addressing the viewers directly with theatrical fury. Folks, this is exactly what I've been telling you about. This is the mainstream media in action. This is how they treat anyone who dares to challenge their narrative, anyone who fights for the American people. Sarah Haynes, her voice shaking, with emotion, tried one last time. We're not the enemy here. We're trying to do our jobs, trying to ask the questions that need to be asked. Trump spun back around, his eyes blazing. Your jobs? Your job is supposed to be informing the American people, not attacking them. Your job is supposed to be journalism, not activism. But you failed at that job completely. The final insult was delivered with such contempt that it seemed to suck all the air out of the room. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft whir of cameras and the barely audible gasps of the audience. Then, with dramatic flair that seemed calculated for maximum impact, Trump began removing his microphone. I don't have to sit here and take this abuse, he declared, his voice carrying across the stunned studio. I came here in good faith, hoping to have a real conversation, but all you want to do is attack, attack, attack. He stood up, tossing the microphone onto his chair with a gesture of disgust. The American people deserve better than this. They deserve honest journalism, not this partisan hackery. And frankly, I have better things to do than waste my time with people who have already made up their minds. Whoopi made one final, desperate attempt to keep him from leaving. Sir, please don't leave like this. We can still have a productive conversation. But Trump was already walking toward the edge of the stage, his security detail moving in to escort him. He turned back one final time, his voice carrying clearly across the now silent studio. Productive? There's nothing productive about this. Ambush. But you know what? Thank you for showing the American people exactly who you really are. Thank you for proving everything I've been saying about the mainstream media. With that final condemnation hanging in the air, Donald Trump strode off the View's stage, leaving behind a panel of stunned hosts, a speechless audience, and what would undoubtedly go down as one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The cameras continued rolling, capturing the aftermath of pure chaos, as the show's producers scrambled to figure out how to fill the remaining airtime after their guest had dramatically stormed out, leaving everyone to process what they had just witnessed.